documents revealing former FBI Director Jeanine.
I'm talking about.
I do, you Palmetto Queen.
No, you do too, though. You're always going home. You introduced us to your family when you went to Puerto Rico after
Home
the
is
storm.
very important to me. And, I mean, particularly when you have a large family. Yeah, I mean, the Puerto Rican family, my dad was one of 17 children, so it was
awesome.
vast. And we just found out, I did Ancestry.com. It's so fascinating that we're 10% Native American.
Really?
I mean, I had no idea. I mean, this is my whole life. I'm in my 8th decade of life.
Look at that.
And, you know, we're 10% Native American. And people started making cracks about Elizabeth Warren and all so
I
forth.
wanted to, but I know.
You're in your 8th decade. You look great.
Yeah, well, you know.
You feel good?
A lot of wear and tear lately.
Harold, here's a question. During your 8 decades on this earth, have you ever seen so many people question whether or not they can trust the Department of Justice and the FBI? Because now, apparently, new documents that Fox News has obtained through Senator Ron Johnson's office shows that it looks like 2 months before Hillary Clinton even was interviewed last year, before the election, and what they knew the outcome of that interview was going to be, they were already trying to exonerate her.
I think it's fascinating. I mean, you asked me a historical reference first. It reminds me of the early 70s. It reminds me of all the churn around President Nixon and what the role exactly of the Federal Bureau of Investigation was and the Department of Justice and so forth. And he was a sitting president, absolutely. This is interesting because here was all the pressure on Comey, on the FBI, as the election is approaching, all of these allegations that President Trump, then candidate Trump, made central to his campaign about Hillary Clinton and the emails and so forth. So the FBI was in the rare position of almost determining the outcome of the election. And what was their first impression? Their first impression was that she was grossly negligent. Why is that important? Because gross negligence,
that's what they wrote.
It is the entry-level criminal culpability. In other words, if you are grossly negligent, it's possible that you're guilty of a misdemeanor in terms of her handling of the server and the emails and so forth. But as he approached his public proclamations about it, it was reduced from gross negligence to extreme carelessness, which is not a crime. So it was a very, very significant move, a de-escalation of the FBI's very critical appraisal of Hillary Clinton and her handling of the email. It exonerated her to a large extent and propelled her candidacy until he got involved again, of course, later on when he said they found another computer and more emails and they had to investigate it just a week or so before the election.
Does it affect your view at all of this, that Peter Strzok and others that have been shown to be partisans? Everyone's allowed to have their own political allegiance, but we're involved in that writing. Ultimately, it lands on the desk of James Comey. But is it worth going back and investigating the investigators and seeing if there was political bias?
That's the most important part of your question, Pete, is whether it's worth it. But let me put that aside and say that it is now reasonably established by the media, thanks to Senator Johnson and others, that if anything, I mean, if it isn't bias, it is at least extreme inclination to favor Clinton over Trump, which is distressing when you consider that these are the same people now investigating President Trump with, Russiagate and so forth. To me, though, and this is what we should be concentrating on, despite this inclination or bias against President Trump, and despite the expenditure of $8 million and all of this effort by all of these smart people, what have they come up with? People point to the indictment of Paul Manafort. Sure, but that was about business dealings that predated President Trump's candidacy. It had nothing to do with President Trump. Right. They point to General Flynn, Michael Flynn, and his plea to lying to federal investigators. Again, that is about General Flynn. That's not about President Trump. So where do we sit this morning? We sit in a place where, despite all of this effort and all of this possible bias, with absolutely nothing implicating President Trump in the collusion, so-called, with Russia to influence the election.
There is collusion. It looks like there's collusion between Barack Obama's Department of Justice and the Clinton campaign.
Whether or not it is, Steve, whether or not it is specific cooperation or collusion.
But folks like Newt Gingrich are saying it's time to investigate that. That's where the real collusion is.
This
Is it not worth finding justice?
Do we care about the 45th president of the United States being a success or not? Are we going to continue to look backwards at all of this crap?
But that's
or
all
are we going to now encourage this president to get his tax plan
You want to,
passed?
but you also want to hold people accountable if they're doing things that are wrong and shady, so
I guess,
you can
Ainsley,
regain trust.
But I care much more about shouting from the rooftops. There's no there. Right. At what point do decent people say enough? The problem with special prosecutors, period, and that's why I absolutely oppose the appointing of another special prosecutor to review these controversies that we've been talking about this morning. They are self-perpetuating. They are funded, they are empowered, and they tend not to know when to stop, when to quit. At what point do you say, okay, I did it. Here's General Flynn. He lied. Here's Paul Manafort. He was a crook. And now let the president be the president.
But to Ainsley's point, at what point do you say enough? If you really want to restore faith in the FBI and the Justice Department, then you've got to strip out that bias and call it for what it is. Otherwise, saying, okay, Trump's innocent, which we know, and we're just going to sweep the rest of the stuff under the rug because we want to move on, it doesn't restore faith for anyone that we've actually held for account to those who used our Justice Department as a weapon.
Yeah.
When was the last time? When was the last time in anyone watching now? When was the last time you saw a special prosecutor say, okay, I've done it. This is the job. We're finished. I found what I found. I didn't find what I didn't find. Now let's go on. Goodbye. And now I go back, fade back into. It never happens. No. It never happens. Just like a city job. Nobody ever quits a city job because you get paid, you get a pension, you get taken care of, you get full health, you get dental, eye care. Nobody ever quits.
Well,
no one ever quits a special prosecutor.
Speaking of a city, right over here at Port Authority, at the beginning of the week, we had a guy try and blow up a bunch of people in the subway. Thankfully, he was not successful. He got into our country through chain migration. So if his family has 17 kids, all of them can come in. All of their kids can come in. All the grandparents can come in. What do you think about it?
Well, first of all, I was absolutely agonizing over not being in New York on Monday. I was in Cleveland, our new home, and I felt so much for Times Square, you know, a block away, and it was awful what happened. And thank God he was such an absolute a bumble bum that he blew his own belly. You know, I want them all to end that way. Yeah. On the issue of immigration, I think the visa lottery has outlived its usefulness. I think that when you compare the visa diversity lottery recipients, winners, with the DREAM Act students, for example, if you're talking about groups of immigrants, one is absolutely unvetted or only vetted after the fact. The other is so vetted that you know whether they have a cavity or not. You know exactly where they were born. You know exactly what they're doing. You know exactly where they are now. Yeah. That, I think, the DREAM Act is exactly the way immigration should happen. The visa lottery, why this whole concept of winning? It's not about gambling. It's about immigration should serve, yes, a humanitarian purpose, but also it should strengthen the country. That's why I cannot for the life of me understand how you have people coming here, going to Stanford, they get a graduate degree in some kind of digital science, and then we send them back because the student visa has expired. That's the point I want to keep. I want to keep that guy.
You're talking about merit-based immigration
Absolutely.
policy.
You want to enrich the country.
Should chain migration be significantly curtailed? Because it
depends.
Somalis in Minneapolis, where we've had some serious terror issues. Right. The entire city of Mogadishu is coming if you don't put some. And
having covered Mogadishu from the ground, I can tell you it's a place that does not breed people who are going to study and be law-abiding. It's a crazy anarchistic, violent place. But about chain migration, I think you have to be reasonable about it. I mean, if a dad comes, then I think he should be able to take his wife. But if a guy comes, I mean, his auntie, his uncle, his nephew, I think that
where do you draw the line?
You have to be.
Is it 4 people?
It's got to be 40? It's got to be, I think, the core family. You define it in a reasonable way where it makes sense and it's humanitarian without being stupid. Yeah. I think getting the uncle and the nephew and the cousin and so forth, it absolutely perverts the concept. But I think that the president is onto something. And, you know, I'm a very, very fierce pro-immigration advocate. I think the country is strengthened by it. I think our diversity is our strength. But we also want to bring people that add to the to the pot.
Yeah.
You want to bring in the people that they're going to make the Google, they're going to make the factory, invent the new gadget. That's what I want. And I want this to be that unique place. I want this to be the shining city on the hill. But I don't want us to be so naive that we create a situation where we hurt ourselves.
Yeah. All right. Geraldo, thank you very much for joining us.
Delighted to be back. Thank you. Thank you. I shall be there, Major. I couldn't miss it.
You're in the city for the weekend?
Yes.
We all have to get together.
I'd love to. I'd love to. Thank you.
Another party I'm not invited to.
You're invited.
You and Kathy are always invited.
Thank you very much. Geraldo, we were just talking about terror, and in fact, Jillian joins us right now with the Fox News.
Hi, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning to you. We do have a Fox News alert, so let's get you caught up. ISIS threatening Americans again this Christmas season. The latest propaganda now calling to set Washington, D.C.'s National Cathedral on fire. This after the terror army shared a picture depicting Santa Claus with a box of dynamite in Times Square. That image may have inspired terror suspect Uqayyad Ullah, who's accused of setting off a pipe bomb in New York City's subway system on Monday. President Trump visiting the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia today. The commander-in-chief set to leave the White House in about an hour to deliver remarks to graduates of the agency's 10-week program. His appearance coming less than 2 weeks after claiming the agency's reputation was, quote, in tatters, as we learn about the potential conflicts of interest in the Russia probe. A rogue cow slipping away from a popular nativity scene, not once, but twice. Stormy wandering away from a Philadelphia church before police could wrangle her on a busy interstate. Oh, Stormy. Well, guess what? After that, Stormy broke free again, winding up in a parking garage. The church not taking any more chances with the curious cow. Stormy has been replaced with a smaller cow named Ginger. And I have to give a shout out, guys, to the Philadelphia Police Department because they have so much fun on Twitter. Take a look what they tweeted yesterday. You know, you start your day by saying, well, being a cop is a tough job, but at least I want to catch a cow today. And then you know what? You're wrangling a bovine. Well, at least I don't have to do that again, they say. And then they had to do that again. I love the picture of the cow, though, like, hold on, hold my beer. Yeah.
Hey, I'm out of here, the cow says.
Yeah.
This is not my job.
They have fun. It's a good time.
We need to add a cow to the manger scene. I have like camels and I have donkeys.
Sheep. You have sheep.
I have
probably.
sheep. You have sheep. Gotta add a cow.
Why not
Yeah.
cows?
Well, maybe Stormy's available now for you.
Sure.
So.
No, I don't want a live one.
You know,
I need a little
without,
figurine.
More fun with
without
the
being a
live
bummer about it, you know, that plot
Thanks,
to
Jillian.
burn the National Cathedral.
Yeah.
I mean, the odds are those kinds of things will happen. We've got to respond to them, vigorously investigate them, do the best we can to prevent them. Everybody's got to react to it in a positive, neighborly, patriotic way. But I fear that is our future. I mean,
That's the big worry.
It is.
Got to be vigilant. Yep.
All right,
Thanks, Geraldo.
Geraldo, travel safely.
That's why
Thank
it's
you. Merry
important to
Christmas.
remember our men and women who fight for our country. President Trump, one step closer to putting money back in your pocket with the historic tax cuts, but there are some Republican holdouts. Stu Varney's here next to break it all down. Come on in, Stuart.
Hello, Stu. Greetings, all.
Good.
Well, 'tis the season for tax reform as Republicans work to get their bill across the finish line in Congress by Christmas.
So can they do it, and what will the bill mean for the American people and the economy?
Here to weigh in is Stuart Varney, the host of Varney and Company on Fox Business Network. Stuart?
Shall I answer Pete's questions right from the get-go
Yes,
here?
please.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, it will go through because I can't believe that the GOP will say no at this very, very late stage. And yes, it will give us growth in the economy next year. And tens of millions of people will get a higher paycheck in February of next year. There's answering your questions.
Well,
What
that
else do you want to
sounds
know?
good. But Marco Rubio,
Yes.
he's holding
And
up the
Senator
process
Lee.
because he wants more dough in the child tax credit.
Here's what's happened. They've taken some money away from big businesses, about $100 billion spent over a 10-year period. And Marco Rubio and Senator Lee, they want a piece of that $100 billion. So they're now saying, I want more in this child tax credit. And I'm not going to vote yes until you give me more on the child tax credit.
Right now they're getting
Sausage
$87 billion.
Yeah, look, it's sausage making at the very last minute. You also have Senators Corker and Flake. They're still publicly worrying about the deficit, but they're not saying, I'm voting no because of the deficit.
Right.
And you do have John McCain and Thad Cochran of Mississippi. They are not well. John McCain is in the hospital. You have to be on the floor of the United States Senate to cast a vote. So there's some element of doubt there. Some element of
Senator
doubt.
Corker also ill as well and hasn't been casting votes.
But
he's expected back next week.
Look, when push comes to shove, at the very last minute, I just can't see the Republican Party saying, no, we're not going to do it. We've come this far, but no, I'm sorry. We can't just do it.
Yeah.
Out of the question.
One other topic, you know, you are anti-regulation to begin with. Yesterday, the president made it very clear, you know, he had suggested that for every new regulation, he would chop 2 away. Yep. Yesterday, he announced that so far, for every new regulation, he's chopped 22.
This is wonderful news for the animal spirits of capitalism. If you're just about to start, that perked up your interest, animal spirit. All right. Now, if you're just about to start a business or you're running a small business, the last thing you want is red tape around your neck, filling out this form, asking for that permit. You don't want that. You just want to get on with the business of hiring people and making a profit. Well, the president has removed that burden from a lot of small businesses, and I think it's done the economy a power of good.
I'll never forget when the president talked about regulations and he rolled out what looked like Santa's list. It was so long, and he said, these are the regulations and all the red tape you have to go through just to build a highway. And he said, by the time you get to the bottom, some of these businesses have gone out of business. You've got to start all over again. So,
a quick example. I have a farm in upstate New York. There had been a rule, they proposed it, that if you've got a rock within 20 feet of a stream on your property, you've got to get a permit to move it.
To move the rock.
And an environmental impact study to move the rock. Well, he got rid of the rule. Thank you.
All right, Stuart, thank you very much.
Ron Varney and Company on the Fox Business Channel.
Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, what exactly is this net neutrality thing, and did it end the internet yesterday? We're going to talk to the FCC chair next.
The Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, did something absolutely despicable today.
And Jimmy Kimmel turned spokesman for Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, sounding the alarm and calling out the FCC after the agency voted to overturn an Obama-era internet regulation known as net neutrality.
The move causing some on the left to paint an even dire picture with a CNN headline reading, quote, "End of the internet as we know it." So is it the end of the internet?
Well, let's talk to the chairman of the FCC. Ajit Pai joins us from our nation's capital. Ajit,
good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I know yesterday when it was repealed, an exciting day there at the FCC. Somebody called in a bomb threat, and there were all sorts of worry. What is Jimmy Kimmel, who said that about you, what's he getting wrong about this?
He's getting everything wrong about it. The free and open internet we had prior to 2015 is the one we are going to have going forward. And that kind of name-calling and hysteria is disappointing, but it's not surprising. Those who have said that the internet as we know it is about to end have been proven wrong starting this morning as people send emails, check on their Twitter accounts, post on Facebook and the like. We have a free and open internet going forward, and the FCC and the FTC going forward are going to make sure that happens.
Ajit, boil this down for us, because it feels complicated, because one says net neutrality looks fair and equal, yet what you've done has opened it up, as you said, to a free and open internet. Simply put, what are people missing? What does this boil down to?
What it boils down to is, should the government micromanage how the internet works? For 20 years before 2015, starting with President Clinton, we decided no. We wanted to have a free market approach in which innovators could innovate and consumers could benefit. And the results speak for themselves. Companies like Facebook and Amazon and Netflix and Google became global giants precisely because the government wasn't involved. That is the light touch framework to which we are returning, and that's part of the reason why I think so much of this hysteria is simply misplaced. As we will see going forward, getting this regulatory system right means better, faster, cheaper internet access for all Americans across the country.
So I heard earlier that 30% of America only has one choice when it comes to their internet choices. So does this mean that those companies they're not going to start raising rates on those families, are they?
Two different points. Number one, to the extent that lack of competition is an issue, and I've seen that for myself in parts of the country, the solution is more competition, not heavier government regulation that makes it even harder for new competitors to enter. Number two, as I said, the FCC and the Federal Trade Commission are going to continue to be cops on the beat. So if there's any company, any internet service provider that acts in any competitive way, we will take action accordingly.
Okay, here's what I want to know. Is my internet going to slow down? What I'm paying right now, I'm okay with it, a little high, but is it going to slow down? Will I be able to pay for more? What's the deal for me, the average consumer?
And look, here too, I think there's been a lot of misinformation. Think about how far we've come from the 20 years starting in 1996 until these rules were adopted in 2015. We went from 28K modems and AOL CD-ROMs in the mail to gigabit fiber and 4G LTE. So going forward, the internet is going to speed up. We're going to see better and faster and cheaper services all across the board. And that's exactly what these rules, which were, after all, the Clinton-era rules that served us so well, are calibrated to do.
Jean, if we had stayed with net neutrality and there had been, say, a President Hillary Clinton, I mean, where could this have gone? What type of regulation could we see?
There's no question that that kind of FCC would have heavily regulated the internet even further. They would have banned, for example, free data offerings by wireless companies, where the wireless company will say you can stream data, music, video, and the like exempt from any data limits. They would have banned that. They probably would have gotten into price regulation, which is essentially the government deciding how these businesses are going to operate. So there's no telling how far they would have gone. It would have been limited only by their own imagination.
Ajit, you're a smart guy. You went to Harvard. You were general counsel for Verizon. You have Jimmy Kimmel calling you names. What'd you think of that?
I think it's unbecoming of the seriousness of this debate, but again, it's not surprising. Those on the other side have literally nothing other to peddle than hysteria and misinformation and fear about the light touch approach that we had for most of the internet's existence. So I would hope that people would focus on the facts, but again, given what's transpired over the last several weeks, I'm not surprised at all.
And before you go, the headline over at CNN, "End of the Internet as we know it." Is that accurate?
It's not accurate at all, but again, that's part of having a free country. People can say anything they want, and in some cases, they literally do.
All right.
They sure do. You're right.
Well, we've grown to love our internet, and we don't want it to get messed up. And if you say the prices are going to go down in the future, we like that idea.
We do like that. FCC Commissioner Ajit Pai, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Ajit.
Hey, thank you.
All right, good information.
All right, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prices go down, competition, that makes sense.
Government out of my way.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in for that. Yeah. Good stuff.
All that hysteria for nothing.
The internet is not over, folks. She was
That World Wide Web, it's going to be a big thing.
They might add a W, Super World Wide Web. That would be an S, not a W. All right, she was the getaway driver for a cop killer. Now this domestic terrorist could get out of jail early, citing bias.
Plus, happy National Ugly Christmas Sweater Day. Janice is putting the finishing touches on her ugly sweater, and she has help from our neighbors.
Well, it's that time of year, though. Grab the most festive and obnoxiously ugly or awesome Christmas sweater you can find, because today is National Ugly Christmas Sweater Day.
That's right. Fred and Mark Hajar are the co-founders of uglychristmassweater.com. They join us live. How did the ugly Christmas sweaters start?
Basically, it started as people wearing their grandma's old Christmas sweaters.
Yes, that's true.
And then all of a sudden it turned into a popular pop culture thing.
Wait, Fred, is yours the most popular? Look at that.
It's
That's
right,
the one from the Christmas Story.
Fragile. The Fragile.
Fragile light, yes.
And then you've got Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal, which is the line from Home Alone. Yes. I got news for you. Mine is not very bad looking at this point.
So this is actually cute.
What happens to this?
This is funny.
All right,
wow.
so
no.
What is that?
No
It's a
way.
mouse.
That is so cute.
It's,
Isn't that a movie? You have to
hold on.
take off
Oh,
the
you gotta take the
Velcro.
Velcro off.
That is
How do you
great.
guys how are these things topped year after year? Because they just become so ridiculous.
That is so
Yeah, they're
funny.
the more
You get it?
ridiculous, the better, I guess now.
Look at Steve. That is awesome.
Now, how much is something like this?
That one is $59.99 on uglychristmassweater.com.
Because I'm
Worth
buying
it. So you can also do custom sweaters, right?
We
Fox
can.
and Friends?
We can.
That's
That's
cool.
not ugly at all. That's,
No, that's
And
really
what about
beautiful.
do it yourself?
We do have do-it-yourself sweaters and custom sweaters
bad,
on our
right?
customer.
I like this homage to the
this is
president.
not ugly at all. This is beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
It's gonna be huge.
Oh, that is perfect.
You need a little bigger.
It's going to be huge.
The tightest sweater ever.
Jillian,
I love it.
I'm an elf taking a selfie. I'm an elfie.
I love that.
What is yours?
I'm an elf taking a
You're
selfie.
Elfie.
I'm an elfie.
Hashtag Elfie.
Hashtag
That's
Elfie.
really cute. Janice, you did the.
Are
make
those
your
on the
own.
website, Fox and Friends?
I think so. We can make these, right?
So we have our own customizer where you can design your own custom sweater, and that's what we use to design that.
Todd, what's yours?
I've got an ode to the greatest Christmas movie ever, Christmas Vacation. We have the Tenement on Wheels up
Love
here.
it.
And of course, the Jelly of the Month Club, Clark, it's the gift that
That's
keeps on
awesome.
giving.
That's great.
Or you can just make your own.
I just bought that video online. I bought that one.
did?
I bought Elf. Because y'all told me
Two
Elf was
best
excellent.
movies.
I'm
You've
taking
never
them-
seen Elf?
Okay,
I've
so
never
it
seen
started
Elf.
with Grandma's ugly sweater, but then it really started to take off how many years ago?
We started in 2012.
Yeah.
And it started to take off after that. It's grown year after year significantly.
How did you? No, you had to buy this URL a long time ago. It's uglychristmassweater.com.
Correct. We bought it in 2011,
Good
and
thinking.
each year it's grown quite
It's
significantly.
that kind of foresight that if people would have bought Bitcoin at $1
In 2011, you're rolling in it.
Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Ugly Christmas dance party now? Go for it.
Play the music then. All around. I do have to get to some news, though, guys. Then we do
We'll
have some
get out of your
breaking
way.
royal news. Are you ready for this? We have a Fox News alert. Mark your calendars, guys. Kensington Palace just announcing Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have officially set their wedding date. The couple will marry on May 19th of 2018. They will say "I do" at the St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle in England. The British royalty proposed to the American actress just last month. A domestic terrorist is now suing the New York State Board of Parole, complaining of bias. Judith Clark says she was unfairly denied parole in April and treated as a symbol of crime rather than an individual. Clark was the getaway driver in a deadly 1981 armored truck heist where a security guard and 2 police officers were killed. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo commuted her sentence last December, making her immediately eligible for parole. Christmas now canceled in the town where Jesus Christ grew up, and President Trump is taking the blame. Muslim mayor of Nazareth, Israel, announcing that a number of Christmas events will not go on. He says President Trump has taken the joy out of the season after recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Fox News contributor Pastor Robert Jeffress reacted.
Look, the tendency of any culture is to become more secular, and as that happens, unbelievers feel empowered to come out of the closet and share what they really believe or what they don't believe.
The canceled events are traditionally major tourist attractions. Sarah Sanders sticking a fork in Piegate, the White House press secretary making amends, at least for now, with CNN reporter April Ryan, who claimed Sanders didn't make her own Thanksgiving pecan pie. I say pecan, I know pecan. So Sanders baked a new round of pies for the press.
I look at this as a reset. I think this is an earnest attempt for you to reach out to all of us, not just to me.
I can't believe you would question my ability.
Girl, bye. I mean, but it was a joke. But at the beginning, it was a joke. So what? You could be from the South and you can't cook. A lot of people can't cook.
Ryan didn't even end up eating a slice. Girl, bye. There you go.
You can't put a fork in it if you don't eat a slice.
You don't eat the slice, I know.
Everyone's going to want Ainsley's sweater.
It's
I know.
awesome.
Really?
I want it.
Cool.
They should sell them. You can design your own Fox and Friends sweater.
But I think people are going to want this down at the Moose Lodge.
People can send us your pictures, your ugly Christmas sweaters, right?
Great idea.
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
So
The show's almost
smart.
over, so we'll do it for the weekend. How
Yes.
Okay.
Meanwhile, coming up on this Friday telecast, your questions about the new tax bill filling up our inbox, like this one from Jason, who asks, what's the bottom line as a middle-class American? Will my take-home pay increase with those cuts? Our accountant, Daniel Geltrude, is back answering your questions next.
Plus, they are here to help us literally kick off the holiday season with the Radio City Rockettes. They join us live coming up. Happy
Welcome back. Couple of quick headlines for you. Medical experts are exploring ways to plant chips into human skulls to help boost brain ability. Uber instead of 911 during medical emergencies. New research shows ambulance usage dropped by 7% in cities where the ride-sharing service started in 2013. Researchers say people did not want to pay for the ambulance, and they could also pick their own hospital instead of being taken to the nearest one. So I guess if it's not life-threatening, pick your hospital and do it for $30 instead of $300.
All right, well, your emails are pouring in about what the tax bill means for you and your family.
This guy's been busy. CPA and founder of Geltrude and Company, Dan Geltrude, once again joins us with some of the answers to your questions. First up, Dan, we got an email from Phil who asks, how will long-term capital gains be taxed?
No change there. So the percentage that was being used before will continue for long-term capital gains. That was one of the ones I was hoping that they would drop down, because lowering the capital gains rate has been known to stimulate economic growth. They decided to leave it alone. Probably gets that label of tax break for the rich. That's
Yeah.
why they stayed away from it.
You're probably
Interesting.
right.
Interesting the things that actually drive the sausage making of the bill, that and the how CBO scores it.
Messaging.
That's right, exactly. Email from Michael that sent in to us. It said, will I still be able to write off the interest I paid on my mortgage?
So your existing mortgage, no change. The changes will take effect starting next year with any new mortgage. Right now, deductibility up to $1 million. That is going to be lowered to $750,000, which was an exact meet in the middle between the House and the Senate bill.
Now, this is from Jason. He says, what's the bottom line? As a middle-class American, will my take-home pay increase with these cuts?
Really hard to say the bottom line, but if I had to make a call, middle class are going to get a tax cut, specifically if they are not itemizing, because those rates are coming down. They're going to have more money in their pocket in 2018.
Standard deduction still doubled in this compromise bill?
Yes, it is.
One of the most unfair taxes, I feel, is the so-called death tax. And Alan emailed us, what happened to the estate taxes in the current bill?
Death and taxes not going away, in this case, married together, right? So what they've done is currently, if you're, for an individual, little over $5 million, $10 million if you're married in terms of not paying tax up to that amount of assets. They are doubling that. So we're going to go to about $11 million and $22 million.
That's
so
a
a
lot.
significant raise with the before the death tax kicks in.
Interesting. We've got an email from Stacy. She wrote, my husband travels for his job. Will the new tax law affect current travel expense deductions?
Travel expenses will remain deductible. So in this particular case, if he is being reimbursed for his travel expenses by the company will still be able to deduct those. However, meals and entertainment going away. That's a big one. No more deductions for that.
Really?
Got to live it up between now and the end of the year.
Party it up for Christmas.
Got a few weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Dan. All right, coming up, they're here to literally help kick off the holiday season. The Radio City Rockettes join us live.